Oh, that's good.
You have to try it. It's so good. You have to try it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wait, so we're finishing up? Yes.
أهلا السلام عليكم. What's good, man? Watch out for the team.
We're finishing up.
No.
Are we starting to end it? I feel like we always fall behind schedule during the classes. The conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Go. So it's too dark. Yeah. Yeah. I already have enough issues with the community. You're just gonna like you turn the lights off. It's like, yeah, men and women, they sit in one room with all the lights off.
Is that true? Is that true?
طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So we had started last week the reasons that people actually backbite, or what pushes them to backbite, and we had said that there are 11 reasons, and we said 8 apply to the lay Muslim and 3 apply to the clergy. And it's just really interesting how time and again you have Ghazāli bringing up the clergy or talking about Qurra or talking about the people who are representative of the Deen. And this is for a few reasons. Number one is that he himself had problems with the clergy at his time and some of the image that they were trying to portray. And the second reason is just like as a reminder to them so that they would actually come back and practice in a cleaner and better way. So we had talked about these, and I mentioned them: repressing anger, social pressure, inferiority complexes, scapegoating, boasting, jealousy, joking, insulting, and the clergy exaggerating pity and religious anger. And we'll talk about these, inshallah, individually and in detail. So repressing anger. So basically, it's when a person is provoked and his temper begins to boil, he starts speaking out of emotion. And he starts saying things which he doesn't actually mean. And what is pushing him to say things he doesn't mean? His anger, right? It's his anger that's actually pushing him to say the things that he means. And what happens is that he suppresses that anger, which ends up leading to abuse. I will talk about some of the ways to deal with this, but immediately what comes to mind? What is the easy way of dealing with the suppressed anger? MMA. Okay. For some people, it can actually make them angry. So the question is what do you guys think is an easy way of dealing with this?
Just leaving the room with that person. Acknowledging the emotion.
Okay. Right. Acknowledging the emotion, talking directly about the problem. Don't repress. Right? You don't hold the anger. So I was actually listening to a few podcasts that were discussing emotion and how to deal with emotion and how to process it. One of the things that they said that was really interesting was they're like, whatever emotion it is, embrace it. Embrace the emotion immediately. And they said sometimes embracing the emotion, what it looks like, it feels like a wave of the emotion comes over you, and then that wave passes. So whether it be anger, whether it be sadness, whatever the case might be, and does it matter if the emotion is appropriate or not? So for example, if I'm happy at a funeral, is that an appropriate emotion? No. Is it a wrong emotion? No, right? There's no such thing as a quote unquote wrong emotion. And this is something that's important to keep in mind. Or if I'm sad at a wedding, right? Appropriateness, it doesn't always apply to every single emotion or every single situation. The question then comes is okay, how do I actually deal with that emotion? How do I actually process that emotion? And when it comes to issues of emotion, I would say the subject that is most closely linked on how to process emotion, how to deal with it, is the discussion of sabr. Sabr is very much a discussion of emotional IQ and how to process feelings and how to deal with them. Because even if you look at the verses in the Quran, if you look at the different ahadith, you'll see it's in a very reactionary manner. And how an individual, when something happens to him, then how he reacts to that. So there's nothing wrong with being angry, but how do I deal with the anger? By embracing that anger, acknowledging the emotion, like you had said, and dealing. When should I deal with it? I'm sorry. Is there? You need something? No. Is there? What is the best way to deal with it? And when should I deal with it? I should deal with it immediately. Dealing with it immediately doesn't necessarily mean like, so if I'm angry, does it mean now I should go and punch somebody or something? No. Learning how to process it and learning how to embrace it, this is something that is definitely pivotal and important to understanding the paradigm of what sabr actually is and what emotional intelligence is. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was the pinnacle of emotional intelligence. He understood how to deal with every single situation. Did he show emotion? Yes, absolutely. The companions actually knew what? To what extent did they know his emotion? All right, when his son died, he cried. What else? Right, his face would change. Right, his face would actually change when he was what? When he was angry. Did they know when he was happy? Yeah, they knew when he was happy. They would be able to tell immediately the things that pleased him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the things that made him upset. They would be able to tell the things that made him sad. All of these were easily readable on him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, telling us what? You have to be expressive. Why? So, right, it's communication, definitely, for sure. Yeah. And this is a problem a lot of us have. We're not, because we are either told to be, as men, we're told to be extremely stoic in that we don't show any emotion, or we're told to show emotion to an extreme. But there is a balance there. How I express myself is something that's very fundamental, it's very important, but it has to be done. It has to be done. Otherwise we end up, because repressing anger is not a problem in and of itself, but it leads to what? What is the chapter we're discussing? It leads to ghiba. Ghiba is min akhbath al-kaba'ir. It's from like the most hated and detested of sins. And that's what it can lead to. And that's why it's a problem, and that's why it's an issue. Social pressure. Again, this happens, right? Sometimes we're sitting in a gathering, other people will be talking about someone, sometimes people use it to laugh, or people use it as a topic of conversation. And because everybody else is doing it, I don't want to feel left out. I don't want to feel neglected. So I also will partake in that. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. Yes. Inferiority complex. Inferiority complex is, I think everybody is out to get me. I think everybody's out to hurt me. So before they hurt me, what am I going to do? I'm going to try to hurt them. I'm going to try to speak about them. I'm going to try to put them down. I'm going to try to put out news and information about them. And Ghazāli talks about on actually how to deal with this issue and how to deal with this problem. And one thing I do want to point out, and we'll talk about more of these, this book is not a book of what? Mental health. Okay? I want to be very clear in that. This is a book of spirituality. So whenever he talks about any of these ailments or he talks about any of these issues, these are issues that are directly related to spiritual health issues, not mental health issues. Is there an overlap? Yes, for sure. There is. So I would say that there are three realms of health that we all have, right? We have our physical health, we have our spiritual health, and we have our mental health. All of these will affect the other. If I'm physically and mentally healthy, it will help my spiritual health. If I'm spiritually and mentally healthy, it will help my physical health, and vice versa, right? All of these things affect one another. It's important for us as Muslims to always be balanced. Scapegoating. So basically putting the blame on someone else or calling somebody else out. There's no reason for me to bring anybody else into my faults or into my shortcomings or whatever ill it was that I did. Boasting. So the reason that an individual boasts, or the reason that he puts down others, is because he wants to raise himself. And that is usually the main reason that an individual does this or falls into it. Jealousy, also another reason to talk about people, because when we're jealous, what do we want to do? I'm sorry? You have to speak up, I'm sorry. Yeah, I agree with that 100%, but what is jealousy in and of itself?
You're wanting what someone else.
Right, you wanting what someone else has. Right, is it possible that I have the same thing? Right, like if She's got the new Jordans. I got the new Jordans. Is it possible that I'm jealous of him?
You wanted to be the only.
I wanted to be the only one who has, right? I'll get upset that somebody else has it. Why is he wearing my coat, right? Even that thought, who made this my coat? Or why is he wearing my shoes? Like these aren't, I don't own the brand where I can take ownership of this and prevent other people from wearing or not wearing. So jealousy is definitely a problem. And what's interesting here is he says that this can apply to friends and confidants. How should I take that? Go ahead.
Like if someone's equal to you or perceived equal, you're gonna be jealous of them because they do better in one thing.
Mhm.
It's like you think that you have this perception that they're equal to you, but they're really above you.
Mhm.
So that makes you jealous of them. Like, because like obviously like if you're like talking like someone like in terms of knowledge, right? If you're talking to someone who you know is more knowledgeable than like the sheikh,
Yeah.
then you're not gonna be jealous that the sheikh has more knowledge than you, because that's an expectation.
Okay.
But
Oh,
like,
so
if
your
you're-
expectations for peers are different.
Yeah, like
Mhm.
if you have a peer who's like
Mhm.
smarter than you, that
Yeah.
might make you jealous.
Sure.
When
Oh.
your peers are no longer your peers, when you smash.
Oh, when they surpass you. That's it stings, right? It stings. Yes. Yeah. And in being careful with your friends, right? That's something that's really important too. Who should I ultimately fully confide in? With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no doubt about that. Now, does this mean that I should be like, suspicious of all the people who I deal with? No, but I should be what? I should be careful, right? I should be careful. Even learning how to keep certain things a secret is a skill set. And it's something that's important. Now, what things should I not keep secret? I'm sorry?
Problems you're having with someone.
Right, problems for sure, right? Because that goes back to the suppressed anger that we were talking about. All right, your future plans. Okay, okay, but is there someone I can share future plans with? Right, even with defined family.
Well, parents, siblings.
Sure. So why do we feel more comfortable maybe sharing with parents and siblings than we do with strangers?
Because you trust them, you know they're interested in you in your.
I'm sorry? Sometimes it's reverse. Okay. All right. I mean, no. So the thing is, it actually can't. It depends on some of us. Depends on the relationships that we have with our parents, right? Like sometimes, why won't we share them with our father or mother? Because we fear that every time we share something, what's going to happen? There's going to be some backlash, or there's going to be some criticism, or there's going to be some problem with that. But in general, we want to share with those people. It's because those people, they will never have, or we hope that they never have ill intent for us, right? They only want good for us. And this is why we want to share this information with them. Or I can share future plans with somebody who I'm actually planning to, if I want to get into a particular field, right? Or if I want to open a particular type of business and this person has that business, is it a good idea for me to talk to that person? Yeah, absolutely, right? I'm commanded to do shura, so there is a less likelihood of that failing. Yes.
I was just gonna add that we see this a lot in the law when a parent dies, and if the siblings one gets more than the other, we see a lot of this will come out and end up like sibling.
Oh, sibling rivalry. Yeah.
And then it could end up in the court.
Sure.
We do a lot of mediation with families.
Like inheritance issues. Yeah, I mean, inheritance issues are real. But so jealousy definitely does play a part in that. But what is the bigger issue? The parents didn't do a good job. Like not in the sense of like the parents didn't do a good job in raising them. The parents didn't do a good job in what? But their estate planning. Yeah, this is something Islamically we're mandated to do to make sure that whatever is in our estate is distributed accordingly. And granted, Islamic laws are written, right? Those things are fixed and they're set. But if I'm living in, no, I agree with you. But if I'm living, there's a few problems with that. There's a few problems with that. Number one, does my family know where all of my assets are? They don't. Like there's so many transactions, and if we think about it with each other, there's so many transactions that we are involved in on a personal level that our families are just not aware of. They're just not. There's so many things that we own and so many things that we have that we don't have. Many of us don't have inventory lists. Many of us, if we died today, our families wouldn't have access to our bank accounts, let alone any type of investment accounts we might have. And that's why it's important to have a will. It's not important to have a will because like, oh, how's the money going to be distributed? No, Islamically, it's already written. It's done. Inheritance laws are written. They're done. Not just that, it is one of the issues that we have where there's the least khilaf. There's the least amount of difference of opinion in it.
You definitely need one in this country, though.
Huh? No, yeah. So this over here, over here, I mean, and it varies from state to state, but in Virginia, you guys know what happens to your money? It goes to your wife. Yeah. Yeah, it goes to your spouse. I'm sorry. That's a better way, right? So it actually goes to your spouse. So saying that, it's important to, like, and the thing is, people might be like, oh, well, I trust my spouse and blah, blah. Okay, that's fine. But this is not an issue of a trust. Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put me here to test my spouse? No, I should facilitate. I should make things as easy as possible. I shouldn't put a person in a position where they have to be tested. Is that fair? No, it's just like me leaving $100 bill on my car seat and walking and leaving, going for Jummah and coming back and be like, oh, where's my money? Who here is partially to blame? Me. Why? I'm testing people. I'm testing people, and we should never test people. This applies even to other situations, like where if I don't define my boundaries, if I don't define my boundaries with other people, and then I get mad that somebody takes advantage of me, who's partially to blame? I am, because I didn't define the boundaries of the way I should have. I should have been clearer in the message that I was trying to portray. If there's a certain way I don't want people to talk to me, I have to let them know that. I have to tell them. If there's certain language that I don't appreciate, I have to make sure that I'm clear that that language isn't appreciated. And if I feel time and time again that when I'm trying to share information or I'm trying to tell someone something, and there's a lack of understanding, not between me and this person, but between me and this person and this person and this person and this person, what do I need to do now? I need to check myself. I need to figure out, okay, there's something wrong with the way that I'm presenting this message. There's a problem there, because it's not possible that all of these people misunderstand. It's possible that me and him misunderstand, or me and her misunderstand. But now I have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people who don't understand me. The problem is in how the message is being relayed. And this is something, and it requires introspection. It's very difficult. It's not easy. But we have to make sure that we, from our end, at the least, don't test other people, or don't put other people into uncomfortable positions where they don't understand, or they don't understand how to navigate with me. I define that, and I determine that. And the moment I feel somebody is taking advantage of me, I need to ask myself, have I set the right boundaries with this person? Have I defined it? And if I have defined it and they're being crossed, at that point now I can take recourse, because I've defined it now. I've been very clear. These are my roles and responsibilities. These are my job. This is my job description. This is the way that I like being spoken to. And even those things, they can be negotiated. If I don't like, for example, if me and Nazim are here, he's like, Sheikh, I don't like it when you speak to me in English. And this for me is uncomfortable. What can I do? Huh? I don't have to be friends with him. Do you guys understand? Like, so this is how negotiation works, right? I don't have to force people into relationships. That's not how it works. Relationships should always be organic and natural. Yeah, so like family, even with family, and this is a very interesting point. With family, I am obligated to maintain what? That blood relationship and that tie. Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala define for us on the proximity of that relationship? Do I need, because he's my brother, do I need to meet with him? Am I obligated to meet with him every day? Does that make sense? Yeah. No, for sure. And you know the other problem? What if I have multiple siblings and I'm close with this one and I'm not close with the other one? Am I going to be held accountable because I'm closer to my sister than I am with my brother? No. Why? Because when it comes to the, I won't say the relationship, but the level of the relationship, that space Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has actually given me to navigate. I can determine how close I want that relationship to be and how distant I want it to be. The only thing I'm obligated to do with family is what? Maintain it, right? I have to maintain the relationship. I'm allowed to define how the relationship is. Does that make sense? And it's not easy, right? It's not always going to be easy. The other problem I have on the other extreme is that you will have people who only associate with their family. So there was actually a brother who came and he complained to me. He's like, oh, every time I meet with my cousins, they're always backbiting. They're always doing this, blah, blah. And I was like, who obligated you to meet with your cousins all the time? I said, there are other people in the community. And it's not something we like to hear, but the Muslim population in the United States is what? Small. It's like you're talking about like 1% of the population. And if I'm further limiting it now to my family, I've now limited my choices to almost no one. Like literally I've limited my choices to 10 people. Like if I don't like those 10 people, what do? Can I just dismiss my entire community? Why did the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ come up with the mu'akha system? Why did he come up with the brotherhood system when the Muhajirin first came to Medina? So that they would have somebody who they could relate to. And not just that, did all of those brotherhoods stay? No, some of them did, some of them didn't. And some of them not to the same extent. Some of them, it was just more like, Jazakallah khair, thank you for the help. I'm going to go ahead and do my own thing. And some of them, they stayed some time and they developed a really close relationship. There was intermarriage between their families. You know what I mean? Like all of these things happen, and that's what should happen in community. What is the major barrier? Why isn't community doing that? And why is community doing that? Because we're seeing that too. Okay, sure. Trust. Trust is the main issue. Dave, how do I build trust? I'm sorry?
Building a relationship.
Sure. How do I do that? Okay, getting to know each other, which involves, and like this, and very summarily, it involves me being vulnerable. Me putting myself in a situation where I'm uncomfortable. Me sharing information that I probably wouldn't have been comfortable sharing with a stranger. But if I'm telling someone I'm having a problem with my son, you'll be surprised at the number of people who will actually be willing to come forward and give good advice. Very honestly. But because I want to protect my face, because I want to protect my family, because I want to protect my honor, this is the reason I'm not sharing that information, but I'm willing to share it with my family. And many times I'm not even willing to share it with them. But that's how relationships are built. If I want people to trust me, I have to trust them. I'm giving them a piece of very valuable information. Now I can use this information to gauge on whether I can build a relationship with this person or not. And there might be 3 or 4 or 5 people who are there, and I might be slightly embarrassed. But then there are people who will come forward and be like, it's okay, man. Like, people go through it. It's tough. I'm having a problem with this and that, or I know someone who's having a XYZ problem. You know what just happened there? You just made a connection. Then the 3, 4 other people, they'll be like, yeah, I don't really feel. So you know what happens? You don't build a relationship with those people? Yes.
I'm so glad you're talking about this.
Mhm.
Isn't some of it cultural as well? Like you're afraid that if you have a son with a mental illness and you tell somebody and it gets out in the public, then their daughter will not want to marry your family.
Yeah.
Some of this is
So-
cultural. So
yeah.
how do you?
No, I'm saying, and that's exactly what I was talking about. Most of us don't share the information because we're just trying to save face. But is me saving face worth the life of my son or worth the life of my daughter? Is it worth it? That's a question that we need to ask ourselves.
I don't think she's asking about if it's worth it. I think it's a question of we already are facing.
No, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. So when we sit here, and I've heard this one before too, the community is not helping me. What does that mean? No, it usually means, no. So the thing is, like, are there bad elements to the community? Yes, I absolutely agree that. But what that usually means is like, hey, I went and I asked for money and they didn't give me any. And this is unfortunately from my experience. But people who have actually gone for, or they're doing something else. They're complaining. They're not actually looking for help. And just today, I was having a conversation. Yeah, there's a sister. She came and she's asking for financial aid because we were talking about zakat, and she was asking for financial aid and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, listen, financial aid, it applies. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he only put 2 conditions: that the person has to be Muslim, they have to be needy. He didn't say they don't have to be an alcoholic. He didn't say that the person doesn't have to have this problem, or that he's a spendthrift, or he's bad with his money. But is he in need or not? That's the question. You can give him his zakat money. He can go buy a 75-inch TV. Yeah, I did my job. He will be accountable for misusing it. Does that make sense? So that's not the issue. Was then he was like, okay, but you have these repeat offenders who are coming in. So one time he actually asked this woman, he's like, okay, well, I understand you're in financial hardship and you're having this. She's like, but you have a young son. Why don't, like, we can help him work. Like, let's empower him because, you know, you're a widow, you have a son, we can get him to work. And she was like, no, he can't work. He was like, why? You know, is everything okay? He's like, no, he plays basketball at that time. Okay, well, you know, when the basketball ends, we go, yeah, you know, he has trouble getting around. I need to buy him a car too. I was like 16, man. I wish I had a car 16, man. But you understand, like, so I'm not saying that we should dismiss every claim that the community is not helping, but there definitely needs to be an investigation that has to be explored. Because when I say the community is not helping, what does that actually mean? Did I go to the community, number one, just to beg for money? Or number two, did I go just to complain? Because there are a lot of people who complain, but when somebody's complaining, what do they not want? They don't want a solution. They just want to vent and they just want to share. But if you're just coming to me and you're complaining and you're just laying all this information on me, it's like, okay, well, have you tried this? No, I haven't. Okay, well, have you tried this? I tried everything. Okay, you tried everything that you knew. I respect that and I understand that. But have you asked anybody else for help? Have you asked anybody else like how to get out of this situation or how to get out of this problem? Well, no, I haven't. Then how can you claim you tried everything? I'm saying for me to say I've tried everything is extremely arrogant. It's extremely arrogant. It's not possible I tried everything. It's just not. It's not possible that like within my limited paradigm, you know, in my limited scope, in my limited brain, that I've tried everything. I have to do shura and talk to other people in order to help me do that. And you know, like you had said, in the cultural barrier, how do you get over that? By telling people, is your honor worth your son or daughter's life? Is it?
It actually happened and a girl jumped out of a window.
No, and I'm being very serious when I say that. I'm being very serious when I say that, because people with mental health issues, and this is statistically, who are they most likely to harm? Themselves. This is a fact. This is a fact. People who fall into mental health issues, they are most likely to harm themselves. So if we want to help people, literally, if we want to help people with their lives now, and I'm using this word very purposely, we have to make ourselves vulnerable. We have to reach out. And is it possible that every single person in the community is not helping? Even statistically, amongst mankind, forget Muslims, is there so many people who don't want to help? Do you guys know the most, like, and I'm just curious if you guys know this, the most generous country in the world? It's the United States. And not by like a little, by a lot.
Is that per capita?
Yeah. This is after taking taxation, all these other things into account. They give the most volunteer hours, they give the most money, they spend the most time. It's not an accident the United States is the way that it is, or that it's successful, or the amount of money that the United States puts into special needs programs versus other countries that actually have higher taxation. It's not an accident. And the reason I say this is because this is what promotes vulnerability. By giving access and allowing people and creating gateways so that we can actually find solutions. Because even with the zakat system, and this is one of the points that you know we had been discussing, does zakat solve poverty? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's no way. There's no way 2.5% of the world's wealth is going to take care of 80% of the world's population. It's just not a realistic thing. And for zakat to be an obligation also gives us the indication that what? That there will be poor forever. Like that's just a fact. But anyway, don't be jealous. So joking, and this is just causing other people to laugh, right? It's not actually meant to hurt the other person. That's what joking is. Versus insulting. Insulting is the idea is to laugh at the other person by hurting them, right? Versus joking. The idea is to laugh at the expense of others without the intent of actually hurting them. Yes.
Is there like a between joking and insulting?
Yeah.
What's called microaggressions?
So microaggressions is the problem with microaggressions is it's how it's defined and how it's used. So because you can microaggress without intending to joke, without intending to insult. I find it, like personally, I find it very problematic because I never intended ill will. And how do you remove a microaggression?
It's the person receiving it.
No, but what should they do? Just call it out. Like you just say something like, hey, listen, I didn't appreciate that you said that, or I understood this. The problem that we have is we've come up with all this terminology, and then we will go and start canceling people instead of actually approaching them and dealing with them. I remember I gave a talk one time. And one of the guys was walking out with me, and we were joking. And he said something about and it was in poor taste, but he said something about the Holocaust. And I was like, it really happened. He laughed. Then the coordinator, he contacted me. He's like, hey, he's saying that you're a Holocaust denier. Is this how, do you understand? Is this how we develop relationships? You could say it was in poor taste. You can say you didn't enjoy it. You can say I didn't like that joke. Or he could have probed and said, hey, what do you mean by that? Yes. But just to take an assumption now and take it to third parties, what has happened is that we have the court of criminal justice on Twitter. They're the judge, jury, and execution. It's not how Islam works. There has to be investigation. There has to be exploration. We can't just take things at face value. If we spend so much time and effort understanding the Quran and the Sunnah, should we not take at least a little bit of time to understand what other people are saying? Just a little bit. Otherwise, if I'm constantly assuming everybody around me is bad, you know what's going to happen to all those people? They're just going to stop dealing with me. Yes. The Holocaust did happen, yes. Yeah.
What if, there's somebody who's just always, regardless of your delivery, just always taking things personal, regardless of the delivery.
What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
I don't know, that's why I asked.
So, do you think it's a healthy relationship?
I'm sorry?
Do you think it's a healthy relationship?
I don't.
Okay. I think you just answered your own question. So, and what is the best way for me to gauge that? It's so for example, if I'm talking to somebody, right, every time I go to David and he's and I see him getting angry every single time I talk to him. Now, if I want to maintain this relationship, what are some strategies I can use? Yeah, it's it seems like every time I talk to you, you seem like you're upset. What if that makes him angrier? What? Huh? It's just a negative feedback loop. It just gets worse. Okay, so I think exploration, you guys mentioned it. I think that's a great tool. And I can ask him hey, bro, you seem upset. Is everything all right? And he'd be like, no, I'm fine. All right, and so, and I'm not getting a clear answer from him. Now, what is the next step? What is another strategy I can use? Oh, wow. Oh, man, I'm getting, oof, getting personal, man. Yes.
You can't be the only friend, so you can ask people around.
Yeah. So now I can start asking people around him, right? If we have any mutual friends, and be like, yo, every time I talk to David, he seems salty, man. Everything good? What's going on? So it can be, but yeah, good. So we will actually get to places where backbiting is permissible. Right. And one of those things, intention plays a heavy role. Intention plays a heavy role, except in some of these instances. Right. It doesn't matter what my intention is. I can't insult someone behind their back. Right. Does that make sense? But if over here, if I'm yo, man, he's always upset when I talk to him, what is the purpose of me addressing it? Reconciliation. Right. The goal is actually reconciliation between me and this individual. Yes.
What if the person's unwilling to receive anything or unwilling to have any engaging conversation in any capacity?
Sure. Do you think that's a healthy relationship?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. That's it.
I did
Yeah.
have a situation with a lady. I never approached her because she always looked like she was ready to
Bite your head off. Yeah.
But I found out later on, I started a class called The Art of Conversation.
Yeah.
And I got her to smile.
Sure.
And it took that mean look off of her face.
No, so
A look that she had.
no, but the thing is, no, I'm saying this situation is a little bit different, right?
I'm just saying,
Yeah, no.
sometimes you judge.
Yeah, no, and I was going to say that's the problem here. The problem here wasn't the relationship. The problem was what? The prejudgment, right? Just because somebody looks a certain way, it doesn't mean I can assume that about that person. But at the same time, if I always have a face, what should I expect? People are not going to talk to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people are just not going to approach me. And there are some people who like that. Like, there are some people who actually enjoy that. And from them is the clergy. Like, you'll find a lot of the clergy, they just don't smile. I was like, Islam isn't that bad, dude. Like, I don't why are you so upset? Was it meme? Why so mad? Right. So it's the Prophet ﷺ. How was his character? Like, people wanted to be around him. You know, like his he had an attractive personality. People wanted to go to him. People wanted to be around him. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. People wanted to talk to him. People wanted to touch him. People wanted just to hover. You know what I mean? Just to be in his presence. So does it make sense that we create personalities where people like run away from us? And regardless of how antisocial we are, and even if I'm antisocial, what is the strategy I can use to deal with that?
Put yourself in, like, force yourself.
Okay, force yourself to what? No. Huh? You force yourself. So do I want to force myself to be social if I'm antisocial? Like if I get social anxiety?
Maybe, honestly.
Grocery store? Yes. Go ahead.
What you talk about, like with boundaries, if you describe your boundaries to other people,
Sure.
and then they'll address, like, if you're antisocial, then maybe like.
Okay.
I don't know how you even start to.
Yeah. So like if I'm antisocial and I tell everybody like, hey, I'm antisocial.
Well, not
Yeah.
I'm not really gonna, I don't like taking out that much, like, because I've had conversations, like, the only reason I say this is I've had experiences with like some people who like only meet once in every 3 months, because they're just like, I get so drained.
Sure.
I'm like, that's fine, because
Yeah.
we generally don't meet the two of us together.
Sure.
We meet in a group of 5.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, that's fine, and then we'll plan things out.
Yeah. No, so I think having a group conversation like about being antisocial usually isn't very like the healthiest. It's like, okay, bro, like why are you here? Like, but I think some good personal strategies is setting time limits, because even if you're antisocial, what does that mean? It means that your social tolerance is low, right? Is low, but it means that you still have a tolerance. So I think it's important to like build it up to a point where you could still associate and still deal with people, and then remove yourself from that situation so you can kind of, you know, let off that stress. I think there was a good definition that somebody had actually shared. It's like if you're antisocial if after a gathering you feel drained, and if after a gathering you feel like invigorated, you're social. And there's no right or wrong. Yeah.
Introvert versus extrovert.
Yeah. And so,
Well, it's in the middle.
what, can you be vert fluid or no?
Yeah. And
So why did Ghazāli separate the reasons? So he categorized between the laity and the clergy. He said to show that one category is actually more dangerous than the other. Why? Because the clergy can fall into it. Right? You know, it's very easy for everyone to avoid the first category because it's pretty clear, but the other one is a little bit more difficult, and they feel that it's justified now because they've involved Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly into the conversation. So what are they? Exaggerating. How? So if there are things that are clearly wrong and mistaken in the religion, like lying, gambling, stealing, etc., what you do, you can say, you actually point out that person did it. It's like, you know, I can't believe I saw so-and-so drinking alcohol, or I saw so-and-so lying. And he did something wrong, right? There's no doubt about that. So what could I have done to not make this? Because this falls under the category of what? What are we talking about now? Huh? Backbiting. So how do I turn this into not backbiting? Yes.
I mean, since, you know, there's like etiquette, advising others, what's the plan on the relationship you have with this person?
I'm telling you that I saw Uthman gambling.
I'm telling you, like I'm saying, and like
Mhm.
you're telling me that you saw him gambling.
Yeah.
What you could have done better. Maybe advise him.
Yeah. So number one, not so. Yes. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna, the thing for backbiting, if you don't reveal their identity.
Yeah.
Backbiting.
This is the same thing. Just don't say their name.
I saw someone gambling.
Yeah, I saw someone get like, man, I'm really heartbroken. I saw someone gambling, or like, you know, I saw someone who I knew gambling.
It's like tall glasses, kind
No,
of.
yeah.
Vagina,
It's like,
Could have been anyone.
it's like from Kenya. He could have been anyone, right? Like, and the thing is, whatever the action is, it might actually be true, right? That action might actually be true, but it still would be considered gambling. I mean, gambling stuff, right? It would still be considered backbiting because we mentioned his name.
Is that the right title?
So exaggerating to about religious issues.
So like saying somebody is a gambler, like I was that exaggerating. If they have to gamble.
Yeah, I'll probably change the title. Yeah, is no because that's how he titled it, but I don't think it's not a good translation of it. Yeah. Yes.
Is it concerning like making the sin bigger or smaller depending on?
Yeah, I mean that's yes. So and
I saw, oh, astaghfirullah, I saw so and so.
yeah, exactly. So that's the context. That's the context. So maybe
He's a really big gambler, but he's a small gambler.
no, it's not like I think it's exaggerating in the sense that you're making it a big deal, right? Like it's haram, there's no doubt, but you are making an effort to make it into a big deal. And all you have to do is not mention his name, right? And then this way, it's an easy way to avoid background. And if I really cared about this person, what can I do? Just go talk to them. It doesn't make sense to talk to others. So this is an example he uses, but I don't know how culturally appropriate it really works. The second one I can make sense with, like it makes sense, but the first one I don't understand. Yeah, I know, right? This is not my example. All right, this is I blame Ghazāli for this one. Yes.
For the first half, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like a tabi' hadith, not a hadith, like a situation of sorts. Like, I don't know if you know, like, today I was in a semi-gen, so it's like either Allah is testing her or he's testing him. And that was the response.
Oh, stuff.
It's like, that's where I could think of.
So, yeah, I'm not even going to touch it. So, like, but basically, it's a way of insulting somebody, right? It's a way of insulting someone through like a third party or a third means. Like, how could he sit with so and so, or like how could he spend time with so and so, or this person, like they're known to be this, and it is a form of exaggerating. So pity. This is another one. This is something that's really important too. A lot of times, what will happen is like people who fall into sin, you'll have the clergy who actually pity them. And what they'll do things like, I feel bad so and so that he's suffering from alcohol abuse.
That's so backhanded.
No, exactly, right? That is why this is a problem. That's why this is an issue. It's so bad. It's actually coming across as showing mercy. But the reality is pity is just mercy in a gown of arrogance.
That's so common. Like that's a statement.
Yeah. No, and I'm saying that's exactly what pity is. Pity is mercy, and it's just arrogance, and you're just covering your arrogance with this perceived mercy.
Oh, poor thing, did you hear?
Yeah. No, and it's like no, because this becomes a disclaimer. Yes.
Sometimes a word I hear a lot in the masjid is this.
Yeah.
Is that empathy or pity?
It can be. I mean, so yeah. So the thing is, I don't know, because I don't know what the person's intention is, but it's definitely not positive. Right? Like nobody uses miskeen to be like, yeah, look at that miskeen, right? Like it's not. But it definitely is an issue, and it definitely is a problem. But the bigger problem I have is with pity. Like by pitying someone, I'm not empowering them. I'm not helping them.
What if you're not in a position?
Yeah. So what I want you to think about that and get back to you. Yes.
What's the type of supplication that's like may Allah like help this person? Oh my gosh,
Like after Taraweeh?
No,
Like
no, not that. It's like, well, may Allah help him. Like he can't even like do X, Y, and Z. Like would that fall into this type of category?
Oh, for sure.
Like that type of.
For sure. Yeah, because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Du'a fi dhahr al-ghayb." He says, the one who makes du'a in an individual's absence, then Allah will what? Will answer it. But if I'm making du'a out loud, like Allah knows who I intend. But by me naming the person, who am I benefiting? I'm not benefiting anyone. All I've managed to do, again, I've put that gown of pity and I've put that gown of dua on top of my own arrogance to show how much better I am than that person. And may Allah protect us. Yes.
And more appropriately, you want to feel sympathy, at least not pity, because you can be in that person's shoes as well.
Yeah, no, listen, sympathy and empathy are good and they're required and they're important. Pity is not. So when it comes to like sympathy and empathy, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said from the rights of a Muslim on others attending their janazah, right? Why? To show sympathy with the family. From one of the things that the Prophet sallallahu obligated, if an individual invites you, you should what? Answer his invitation. If an individual has a walima, you should attend. If an individual has an aqiqah, you should attend. All of these things, why? So that we learn how. I'm not necessarily happy that he had a child, but I should be happy that what? No, not that he invited me. that the food is good, right? No, I'm happy because he's happy, right? And that's something that's important. I'm sad because he's sad. It has nothing to do, regardless of what the event is or what the occasion is, whatever emotion that Muslim brother or sister is showing, that I show sympathy and empathy for that emotion. Like I have to feel for that. And that's something that's really important. It's definitely a part of Islam. But am I pitying them? No, absolutely not. So the reason might be true, but we shouldn't have mentioned his name. Like this is, and you'll see this theme very centrally throughout this entire discussion. It's very easy to avoid all of these things just by not mentioning the person, by not mentioning his identified thing. I'm sorry? Yeah. So these past, I think exaggeration, pity, and the last one is was religious anger. So, being angry at lying, being angry at cheating, being angry at zina and prostitution and gambling, right? Like you're angry at all of these things. So you mention the person's name because you're angry because of that particular sin. But the anger is not just like the anger is justified. But again, a lot of this falls under that emotional intelligence. Just because my anger is justified, it doesn't mean that every action that is associated with that emotion is. And these are things that really need to be controlled. This narration, and we'll close with this, inshallah, is a man passed by a group of people during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ and gave them salam, and the group answered. When he had passed by, one of the group said, I hate this man for the sake of Allah. Then the group said, what a terrible thing to say. We swear by Allah that we will tell him. They told one of the men in the group to catch up with the man that had passed and tell him, so he did. The man went to the Messenger of Allah ﷺ and told him what had happened, and he ﷺ called for the other man. He then asked the man, why do you hate him? He responded, he is my neighbor. I know all about him. I swear by Allah, I have not seen him pray except for the obligatory prayers. Oh, it gets better. So The Prophet ﷺ then turned and asked him, and he responded, no, but I swear by Allah, I haven't seen him fast by any month. Oh, wait, I missed the part of it. So anyway, he says that I swear by Allah, has he seen me have any shortcoming in my prayer? Have I not made the ruku'? Have I not made the sajda? And the man said no. He says here, no, but I swear by Allah, I haven't seen him fast. So he goes on, right? The guy, he responds saying that I fulfilled the prayer, like the prayers that I'm praying, I'm fulfilling the rights of those prayers. Have you seen me not fulfill the rights of those prayers? And he said, no. He said, okay, no, but I swear by Allah, I haven't seen him fast any month except this month in which even the pious and the sinners fast. He's like, he's fasting a month that everybody else fasts anyway. The Prophet ﷺ then asked the neighbor about it, and he responded, has he ever seen me break my fast during that month at all? Or fall short in fulfilling even one of its rights? The Prophet ﷺ then turned and asked him, and he responded, he said, no, but I swear by Allah that I haven't seen him ever giving to the beggar and the poor. I haven't seen him give anything in Allah's path except for zakah that the pious and the sinners give. Everybody gives zakah. Why is he special? Prophet ﷺ then asked the neighbor again, and he responded, has he ever seen me ever fall short in zakah or not dressing the one who asks from it? The Prophet ﷺ then turned and asked him, and finally now he's like, no. He doesn't have anything more to man. Prophet ﷺ then said to the man, he said, leave, for he is most likely better than you. Yes. Yes.
It's not related to the story, it's more about hijab. Or about Imam. I was wondering.
Not about niqab.
Somebody tells a person, like, don't wear hijab or you're covering up like that because your heart is not in it, or this is not. Like, how would you respond to this?
It's like, how do you know what's in my heart?
Obviously,
that's silly.
This is obviously something that how would you respond to this? Like, how would you respond
to somebody?
Try to advise this person.
Somebody who's telling someone else to wear hijab?
They're telling them, what's the point of wearing hijab? What's the point of dressing the way you're dressing?
Yeah.
If your heart is not there.
How do you?
They know.
Yeah. No, I'm saying, like, number one, what? Yeah.
They know.
It's like I was like, who is this vile person? Like, it's, yeah, that's like, why are you wearing hijab when your heart is not in it? Why are you praying if your heart is not in it? Why are you fasting if your heart is not in it? Because, I mean, number one, you don't know what's in my heart, like we said. Number two, how do you know that by me doing this action that Allah won't put it in my heart? It's so, that's so malicious. Like, why would you say that? It's like, why do you tell the truth if your heart's not in it? Like, what's like, why? I don't. May Allah guide him or her. Yeah. Huh? It must be a female. No comment. So, and the next chapter is basically how to prevent backbiting. And he says that there are two ingredients that are needed in order to correct backbiting. He said knowledge and action. Like, you have to be able to recognize the reasons that it's happening, but it's not enough to recognize them. You actually have to act on them. And then he says, if you understand and you look at the sources of where these things are coming from, then it's easy to act on the opposite of them so that you can make these corrective measures. And he says searching for the source is something that's really important. And he said the cure is going to come from two angles. He says general and specific. And we'll talk more about these, inshallah, next week. It's about 8 minutes until Iqama. But if you guys have any questions, we'll stop here. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu ala khayri khalqi nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Yes.
Came across a hadith the other day that says that backbiting is worse than zina.
I'm sorry?
There's a hadith that I read.
Yeah.
Backbiting is worse than zina.
Wallahu a'lam. Yeah.
If you're familiar with that hadith, could you kind of explain that?
So the hadith is apparently backbiting is worse than zina. Wallahu a'lam. Wallahu a'lam. I don't know about the authenticity of the hadith, but just in general, when you can compare the two sins, zina is usually consensual, right? While backbiting is not. Zina is a private thing that affects those two people, and because it's consensual, both of them carry sin, versus backbiting, where it's actually possible where you carry the sins of the person who you're backbiting. Yeah.
The measurement would be different anyways, because you can't determine that for each person, whereas it might be something worse for one person, it might not be worse for the other.
So when it comes to the major sins, they're always going to be subjective. And you have scholars who have made a list, right? Said like, these are the major sins, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to 72. If you actually, the further back in time you go to the Prophet, I'll get to you, inshallah. The further back in time you actually go, you guys know like the list of major sins, if you like closer to the Prophet, they're significantly shorter. And as time goes on, like the books that were written, like they start getting like really, really long. Yeah. And the thing is like, well, because there's some type of warning in this and exhortation, yeah, that's got to be a major sin too. But the thing is like the major sins by the Muslims in general are known, right? Backbiting, stealing, murders, and etc. These are the ones that are generally known, and these are the ones that are generally understood. And in terms of that space now of major sins, like zina versus homosexuality versus lying versus backbiting, how do you actually grade those? How do you actually grade like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? And on top of that, what is the benefit of grading them? Does that make sense? Like, what is the benefit of me saying this is number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3? The idea is, if something is a kabira, if something is a major sin, I should take extra effort to what? To avoid it, right? Regardless of what it is, I should make an extra effort, and regardless of where it is on that tier list, right? Is this a tier 1 kabira or a tier 3 kabira? It's irrelevant. I am supposed to stay away from these major sins. I make an extra effort to stay away from these. Other sins I stay away from, but those I make an extra effort from. That's fine. I'll get to you, inshallah. The same hijab person?
Actually, no. But what if does it make a difference the way like it is like Allah's kind of mentioned in the Quran, how he tells us don't even get years enough?
Yeah.
Compared to like how it's mentioned in the Quran. Like
Sure. So the thing is here, let me ask you, the gravity can always be extrapolated from the wording. I can understand that, and I can see why that is. But at the end of the day, I'm going to ask the same question. By me putting a level on the major sins, what have I benefited? Right, I should stay away. If versus treating them as one entity, it's me staying away from all and any of those. And it's like, okay, so now I'm going to make, instead of making an extra effort, I'm going to make an extra effort. It's, like how much more are you going to do that? Yeah, totally.
For me, it makes sense only because of during the Prophet's time versus later on.
So.
It became more part of the judicial system because initially it was ruling and things like that, and then things became more structured, more legal as.
Sure.
Then, like, if Islam expanded and there was a need for punishment to change according to context with cultural context, and so the list would grow. Sure. Just based on how the nation would prioritize what is more punishable than what thing. And so the fatwa would come in, and that's how all of those lists would be cut. Not that they're unnecessary, but understanding them in their context will help you understand. Since we don't have to deal with it in a judiciary system, since we live in a Western nation and we're abide by the laws of the United States, we don't have to think about that. But in a personal sense, personal priorities also matter for people. Like when you're writing rules for yourself, like what's the biggest issue that I personally deal with right now that I need to contend with? Maybe this thing, that thing, you try to address them maybe equally, but more effort goes towards the things that would affect other things as well. But
there are a few things you mentioned. Number one, when it comes to issues, like the argument I've received once is like, well, the things that have corporal and capital punishment, they have a higher standing, right? And my answer was like, okay, what is worse? Zina or disrespecting my parents? One has a punishment, one doesn't. Right? So now, but I think in general, we would agree that disrespecting your parents is pretty high, right? In comparison to other things. Yani, uquq walidain is not something to be messed with. Okay, is riba or zina worse? Is riba or stealing worse? Like riba is worse, but what is the capital or corporal punishment for riba? There isn't one. So it's a very difficult thing. And when it comes to the major sins, by not putting a list to it, I can apply my own personal subjectivity. Like, you understand, like zina might be a problem for someone versus drinking alcohol. So they should make an extra effort. What should they put higher on their personal list? Zina. Does that make sense? Yeah.
We're both on the same page. It's
Yeah.
like, if you have context to the reason that was for so long, then that gives you understanding of why.
I'm sorry. What was your question?
I was gonna add the comments.
Oh.
أشهد أن
Guys,
لا
write it down next time, Sean.
أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة